Hadrian's Wall, for nearly 300 years the northwest frontier of the Roman Empire, built on the orders of the Emperor Hadrian, who visited Britain in AD 122. A wall of turf or stone stretching for 73 miles across northern Britain, with mile castles and turrets, ditches to the north of the wall, a great earthwork or vallum to the south, and 12 or 13 large forts built astride the wall. We're looking up to Houstead and to the new North Gate shining brightly in the sun, and thinking, well, that is the exact size of the gates. There would have been 4 of those. The wall, twice or 3 times as high, would have been the site greeting people 1900 years ago. We're looking at the undulating countryside which the wall had to follow, and because of its nature it wasn't always so secure in all places, and so the mile castles and the turrets were built as an extra form of defence. This is Vindolanda. Vindolanda was a village before the Romans came, and when the Romans came the fort was built, and built quite a few times, and at its height there would have been 5,000 people living here. It was the base for where Hadrian's Wall was actually built, and Hadrian himself came and stayed here to inspect the construction of the wall. So it was a very important, bustling place, a military town. Vindolanda is a few miles southwest of Houstead and stands on a roadway which was called in medieval times the Stane Gate, but we don't know its Roman name. The Stane Gate connected a number of frontier forts that were built south of Hadrian's Wall. The bathhouses, like the one down here, served a vital function for the community. They weren't just places to get clean, but they were also recreation centres, which is quite like our places now, providing an area for important social functions where soldiers and their families could work out or relax, gamble and gossip, or simply let off steam. And they also provided important access to a public toilet, the only one of its type to be discovered in the village. This is the aqueduct which provided the water for cleaning the bathhouses and latrines and keeping everything healthy as much as possible. This is a typical village house known as a strip house because it's long and narrow, with their narrow sides facing onto the main street. 20 or 30 years ago, below this spot was excavated and they found a really massive timber building, which I think could have been fit for Hadrian when he came to visit, because they know he did. This is a shop, or was a shop, with many different uses over a period of time, including the selling of food and textile production. Another shop has been excavated here, which may have been a butcher's shop with the remains of a counter and a drain. This large building was the tavern, situated next to the workshops and outside the west gate. It was in a prime spot for when the soldiers came out of the fort, thirsty and ready for relaxation. Standing here, looking down, you can see quite clearly the distinction between the village, the vicus, and the fort. With that. These walls were where the Gatehouse would have been, And if you wanted to go inside the fort, everything inside the fort there, you had to show, well, give the password or show some form of identification which would allow you to go in. These two buildings were the main granaries or warehouses inside the fort. This is the headquarters building, Principia, the most impressive building in the fort, where the regimental officers and their clerks maintained the records of the 4th cohort of Gauls. The central room in the southern range of buildings was the Chapel of the Standards, where the precious regimental emblems were displayed. A sunken strong room lay behind for storing the soldiers' pay and savings. There would have been a statue of the emperor in the headquarters, and each time there was a new emperor they had to make a new statue. But when they had quite a few emperors in a short space of time, it got rather expensive, and so what happened was they took their heads off and just put new ones on. And they think that's why Emperor Hadrian's head was found in the Thames not so long ago. We're looking down at the Praetorium, which housed the commanding officer of the 4th cohort of Gauls. He would have maintained a large household, and there was enough room for the entertainment of guests. 4 large altars were found in the courtyard, dedicated to Jupiter and the genius of the residents. And when the building was in ruins in the 5th century, a small Christian church was erected on the former courtyard site. What we see in front of us is a modern reconstruction of the Gatehouse and the tower, the one in wood on the left and stone on the right. Excavations are still carrying on in Vindolanda. They finished for the winter months, but they're still carrying on, they're still finding things, and I expect they will be for many years to come. This is the Chesterholm Museum, where all the finds which have been found here are housed. There's such a variety. Loads of shoes were found, all different sizes, which showed the excavators that it wasn't just soldiers living here, it was their families and their children. They found artefacts which were to do with everyday life on the fort. For example, the wooden spatulas for cooking, the tableware that they would have used, and tent pegs, jewellery, and the most extraordinary find in 1974 was the writing tablets. And once they'd been cleaned and deciphered, all sorts of amazing information was discovered about life in the fort. And one of the most interesting ones is the fact that the lady was sending a very polite invitation to her friends to come to a birthday party.